The Boleyn family's downfall was fast, and it was carefully and meticulously planned. Thomas Cromwell had schemed to end Henry's second marriage and to clear the path for him to marry Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour, of course, had this demure personality that was totally opposite to Anne Boleyn, and they also hoped that she would provide a male heir. Cromwell interrogated any courtiers who may have witnessed the Queen's alleged indiscretions, including her sister-in-law and other ladies-in-waiting. Julia Fox wrote, "The arrest had been so sudden and unexpected that there was no time to separate out what testimony might be damning, what could be twisted to become so, or what could only be innocuous no matter what the interpretation." During George's trial, Thomas Cromwell used a remark made by Anne during her struggle with fertility, and also which Jane had brought up apparently during painstaking questioning. And this is the famous scene where George was given a piece of paper and asked to answer just yes or no to the question. But instead, he chose to read the note aloud, repeating Anne's supposed observation that Henry was not skillful in copulating with a woman and had neither virtue nor potency. And of course, this was seen as a public slight on Henry's prowess. George, Anne, and the four men accused with them were found guilty of adultery. And of course, for George and Anne, they were found guilty of incest. The men were beheaded on May 17th and Anne on May 19th. Today, historians generally concur that the charges against Anne and her supposed lovers were fabricated by Cromwell to ensure that the king was free to marry Jane Seymour. Contrary to popular belief, no contemporary sources name Jane in their lists of George and Anne's accusers. It would be hard to imagine George's wife making these kind of public accusations against him and not have it be used in his trial and not have it be written down in any of the contemporary evidence or accounts. Jane, of course, saw her own downfall because of her relationship with Catherine Howard, Henry's fifth wife, whom he married in 1540, just after the execution of Thomas Cromwell, ironically. Henry was 49, Catherine was still a teenager. For reasons unknown, Jane assisted Catherine in arranging secret meetings with the handsome Thomas Culpeper. This was an adulterous affair that would ultimately lead to the executions of all three. There are lots of theories about why Jane got involved with this. Some people say she agreed to help Catherine once, and then she found herself on this slippery slope with only one outcome. That's what Julia Fox said. Lacey Baldwin Smith calls her an agent provocateur and pathological meddler. Her reputation fell during the end of her life, of course, but only after her death did her name become synonymous with betrayal. In the 1576 edition of John Fox's Acts and Monuments, which documented the Protestant martyrs burned during Mary's reign, there's a marginalia note that says, "It is reported that some of this Lady Rochford forged a false letter against her husband and Queen Anne, her sister, by which they were both cast away, which if it be so, the judgment of God is here to be marked." A few decades later, George Wyatt, the grandson of the Tudor poet Thomas Wyatt, who may have had a romantic relationship with Anne before her marriage to Henry, wrote a biography of Anne in which he also criticized Jane.